What's up, shining lights? This is
Irvin.
and Nico, your host on this shining spotlight. And today we are here with the newest fire in Viz Originals, Eisner Award nominee, Josh Tierney.
Hi, nice to meet you.
What's up? Thank you so much for coming on today. We're really excited about this.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. For all of you who don't know, you see in the title and description here, World Peace is the title of the work he's got out here. Fire, mad props, being the next work Viz has put out in their latest Viz Originals. I think that puts you the number 2 author that they put on that.
It was Fangirl, which was an adaptation of a novel, and then World Peace, which was created from the ground up with Viz, and then the third is Devil's Candy, which is a webcomic compilation.
Oh yeah,
nice.
We got the heads up with Fangirl when we were speaking with Gabrielle before. Representative with Viz.
Yeah, I saw that you talked to her. That's really cool.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Do you know her as well, or?
Yeah, I've been working with her on publicity for World Peace. We've had meetings and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like,
look.
I was in the store. What was it? Just a couple weeks ago, I was in Barnes and Noble. I'm like, we already planned. Like, we got to get this guy on the show.
Yeah.
So when I'm like, oh shoot, okay, all right.
Yeah, I gotta do your research. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. Oh no, go ahead, Nico.
By all means.
And I was just gonna say, so I'm curious. So, of course, before working on World Peace, you also worked on a story called Spera, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah. Spera was my fantasy series. It was my debut publication. It was a webcomic adaptation, but we completely remade it for the book. And that's the thing where I have the Eisner nomination for.
So how did that process go? Like, of course, you worked on Spera, but like, in terms of like, your process and being able to make it to the status where you were nominated for Eisner, like, what was your planning stages like for that story?
Well, I'll just say I definitely wasn't planning to be nominated for anything, like nominated for an Eisner or anything like that. I just wanted to tell the story that I wanted to tell, which is something it was kind of like a fairy tale JRPG mashup. And the planning stages, basically just looking at my childhood love of both fairy tales and JRPGs like 16-bit, 32-bit JRPGs, like Final Fantasy VI, which came out here as 3, as you probably know, stuff like that. And then I wrote it as an adventure story about 2 princesses, a warrior cat named Chobo, and a fire spirit named Yonder. And it was kind of structured like a JRPG, like start off at a town, go through a field, go to a dungeon, go to another town, and so on. That was pretty much how I planned that story. And I've actually seen comments about World Peace for people seem to see that structure in World Peace as well. So I imagine I probably just fell in love with that structure playing those games as a kid. So my adventure stories usually kind of follow that, like start in the city, go to a field, like meet up with party members or friends and go to a dungeon, fight monsters, level up, stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, we definitely saw aspects of that in the story here.
Yeah.
Going to the new world, you got the setup starting up like some great narrative in the game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was mad Final Fantasy fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is. I'm like,
yeah, that's a huge influence on me. Yeah.
I've got to ask, do you keep up with Sword Art Online at all?
Sorry?
Sword Art Online? Have you ever watched it before?
Oh, no, I haven't watched that. The closest I came to that was, I guess there's like a spin-off, like Gun something. Was
Oh,
it
Gun,
Gun
yeah.
Art?
Online? Yeah.
So yeah, it was one where it's like more like military focused. I played the video game of that,
Yeah.
and that's like the closest I've come to Sword Art Online. It had some of the characters in it and stuff too, but that's like an isekai, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
like
Yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah. World Peace, even though I don't think I consciously actually intended it as such, but I can see World Peace is kind of like an isekai as well, since it's like a guy from Toronto gets sucked into another world, basically. But he's not overpowered like isekai characters. He's pretty weak.
Level
Mm.
ups. No.
Yeah, has to level up.
Yeah. I'm gonna,
Yeah, it could be considered so. That being said, I didn't. It's interesting. I didn't think that the underlying structure of it was like some of these typical isekais you see out here though.
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess isekai is like the trope is to get hit by a truck or something. Uh,
and they get hit by a truck or for whatever
yeah,
reason off, and they go to another world or they find some book in the library or some random text in a game.
yeah. It's not like that, but I think Viz initially were considering marketing it as an isekai, but um, I think they might be pushing more towards marketing it as a space opera, which is really what it is. You don't really see that in the first book,
Yeah,
but starting in the next book, they're going to be like traveling all over the universe, like going to different planets and space stations and stuff like that.
yeah. You see the setup of that
So
at the end.
yeah, the setup is there, and I feel like Volume Two is where people will really see what the narrative is like. Since from Volume Two through the end of the series, it's like a huge space opera. Like, I guess like some anime space operas would be like Outlaw Star. Um,
oh yeah, Outlaw Star. You know, kind of.
yeah, I'd say if you look at Outlaw Star, you'd kind of have a sense of the interplanetary travel that's going to be happening in One Piece.
Nice, nice, nice. So, would you say like, what would you like? I guess what was your, I guess out of the RPGs, like in terms of like, I know you mentioned Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So, but in terms of like for like the sci-fi aspect, do you have another particular like influence that you have maybe that you're drawing from for that, or?
Yeah, so I have some visual aids here, do a little show and tell. So when we were starting Volume One, I was kind of looking at Royal Space Force, which is it's Guy Nax's first movie, which is like alternate universe sci-fi story. And it has kind of like almost like a steampunk aesthetic, like if Blade Runner instead of being cyberpunk was steampunk. That's kind of the vibe I get from the overall look of that movie. And that was kind of my starting point for the sci-fi world. But then we kind of shifted in a different direction for the architecture and stuff, where it was a bit more rounded and organic looking. And then starting from Volume Two was when I started watching Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, which
Yeah.
is another Gynax series, just fantastic adventure story.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I started watching that while writing Volume Two, and it's probably the biggest influence on the entire series. So I feel like if somebody is a fan of Nadia and then they read Volume Two of World Peace when it comes out, they'll probably understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Not
I
to give
saw quite a
too
bit of
much away.
Nadia influence there.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have any like particular characters that you have based on anyone like in your life or anything like that? Is there anyone where you're like, okay, you know, this is kind of who I am at?
Uh, yeah. Actually, that's a good question because Mitten is named after a coworker of mine a couple of years ago, like before COVID hit. I worked in a factory, and one of my coworkers, his name is Mitten, and he was a huge supporter. And I kept like telling him, he gave me rides to work, and I kept telling him about World Peace and stuff, and he kept like rooting me on and everything. So when it came time to like naming that character, I thought I'd name it after him.
Oh, that's
Um,
like,
yeah, and then Lucas, I created just because I wanted to write something with like a positive male role model for my son, really, because my other published books have female protagonists, and my daughter loves them. And I wrote those like around the time she was being like born and growing up and stuff. Um, so Road Peace is like the first big publication I've had since my son was born. So I thought, and my son is like a really positive and optimistic little dude, and I kind of wanted to capture that vibe with Lucas, just somebody who's always cheerful no matter like how intense the situation might be.
yeah, I think I saw you on you said on Twitter, you know, how your son was really digging the story. You
Oh
know,
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's amazing to me because he's never been like that with any of my books. But yeah, when I got my complimentary copies in, I gave copies to my kids, and my son just keeps like picking up, grabbing it, flipping through it, reading it from beginning to end. He's always asking questions about it and stuff like that. So I feel like I nailed what I intended to do on a personal level, I guess. For I wrote a protagonist that my son kind of sees himself in.
nice, nice, nice.
Okay, so I mean, going back to Men, I know you named him after your coworker. Were any of
Yeah,
his
yeah.
character traits, his personality from his coworker as well, or was that based off of something else?
No, I just kind of named him as like a little homage to my coworker who's really supportive. And I have been keeping in touch with him during COVID, and I miss a lot of the people there. Um, but yeah, I'd say Mitten's traits, where he's like more of an introvert, and he just wants to read books and stuff like
Hmm.
that. He's probably, if I had to like say one character was based more on like my personality, Mitten would be the closest.
Okay, yeah, I kind of got that vibe. That's why I had to
That's
ask.
yeah, that's kind of why like I picked Mitten as my profile picture on social media and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
figured that myself actually. I was like,
yeah.
it's like you're like basically like here, I'm gonna just sit here next to the characters and just kind of watch the story unfold and help them out a little bit.
Yeah.
But
So
I,
I'm going to come back to Men and Lucas a bit later. I did want to. I mean, what was your inspiration with Lily?
Lully, she really just goes back again to like me being a fan of fairy tales and stuff like that. So the idea is like Lully, she wears like a sparkly black crown and she dresses up in a kind of like fancy fairy tale esque way, but she's not actually a princess. She's completely isolated from the rest of Affen because by her rich, influential parents who are like really protective of her. Since her dad understands like how dangerous the world outside their home is, and I feel like there are hints of that when she sees her dad at the end of the book. Um, but yeah, the idea is that she's just kind of like a traditional um, like princess locked up in a tower kind of thing.
Right.
And then when Lucas comes around, she decides that now's the time to finally leave and go on her own adventures as well and live her own life. But yeah, the reason she's kind of like self-aware. Like she wears the crown and stuff because she figures she might as well dress as what she sees herself as.
So that's actually So it's actually interesting when I hear about Lily, and this is going to kind of tie back into Lucas and Mitten here. But one of the things I really enjoyed when I was going through the book was especially in Lily's case how well you kind of depicted kind of their internal conflicts through their
Yeah,
dialogue and expressions throughout the story and their certain obstacles. I'll be real. A lot of creators I see in the OEL community tend
yeah,
to lack in that department. But I no offense, but I was expecting it to start a bit shaky with that dialogue, but it's interestingly enough, in Lily's case, where she started off is kind of like the
yeah,
princess, where she's like, oh, I just want to be friends and what, or I just want the good, a great friend, and wants to do an adventure. You start
yeah,
to see as the story progresses, various instances of the change within her, and technically the other characters, main cast too, just start to see like reasons why they really want this slash their dilemma with what they're trying to run away from with it. And I
yeah.
feel like Lily came really full circle near the end of that book there. Uh,
Yeah. She might have the most character development, and it's interesting since I think if you look at like the last 20 pages or so, she's basically the protagonist at the end of the book. That's not the case when you get to volume two, but like Mitten and Lucas get knocked out, and then
yeah,
Lully who goes up to Damus and confronts him and all this stuff, and she's the one who has the big confrontation with the unseen villain up to
yeah.
that point.
I'm like,
So
we get to the end of the book, and I'm like, wow, she straight up took over. She's like, I'm done crying. I'm done
yeah,
playing the
yeah,
damsel in distress.
Wait,
You two take a
yeah,
seat. I'm
yeah.
about to address this.
That's
You
exactly how
come
it goes
full
down.
circle. She meets the father, meets the Don, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. That's
And
probably
takes the situation in her hands.
yeah. When she meets her father and all that stuff goes down, I feel like that might be the most successful twist in the book. I'm pretty proud of that moment.
No, props to you for that moment. You had me raising eyebrow, cheese, and I'm like, oh, this turned very in a very interesting direction.
Yeah, thank you. Um,
Uh, and obviously, I got similar things to say in regards to Min and Lucas. And in Min's regard, okay. Um, I actually was curious. Like his transition was well, it was an interesting one because on one hand you were like like would he accept this that easily? But then it's like oh he's kind of stuck with them because they do make it easier for his agenda.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
he comes for a circle where he's like I'm lying to myself. I really like their companionship. I thought that was very interesting in his case.
yeah. Basically, he's gone AWOL and he's trying to get away from the Afghan robot army. I feel I've seen some comments about like the robot army and how it's kind of confusing. Um, I should have clarified it in the first book, but it will be in the second. But Mitten and his parents are basically like the only humans in the robot army. There are some others as well, but it's basically like the humans are the generals and stuff that command the robots. But Mitten is an officer in the robot army. That's why you only see him. Another thing that I kind of want to clarify, I feel like it might not have been clarified, but Effin's like not actually at war or like obviously at war with anybody when the book starts. And I feel like there's some confusion about that because when people hear that there's an army in a book, they're like, okay, there's a war happening. But again, that's not actually the case in this book.
Yeah, I think there
But
was what 2 instances Mitten kind of put out there that that's like the impression that the army is trying to sell. They're just basically trying to fuel for a war.
yeah. He does have like inner monologue and stuff about how he's sick of his parents making him act ready for war, even in times of peace and stuff like that. But, yeah, I feel like this is my chance to clarify some things that I've seen in some comments. But yeah, Mitten's character development is basically he starts off trying to run away from his problems, and then by the end, he realizes he should probably start confronting them instead, and that's his character development. Um,
So I have to ask this. Okay, so how do you feel in terms of like the current state of the industry? Like in terms of like right now you have like of course like a flux of like what people like to call, and this has happened before, so this isn't anything new. I just want to say this to anybody who's watching. Like OEL, manga. So you have a lot
yeah,
more of like for example you, like myself, Nico, basically the whole industry who's creating um, comics that are more in like the manga style, which has happened decades ago. But you have even more people doing that now. What do you think about the current state of the industry? Like, do you have any thoughts on that, or?
uh, I guess I'd probably have some thoughts, but uh, I don't know. I feel like I don't pay attention as much to like how things are selling and that kind of thing. But yeah, I guess just to kind of touch on some random aspects of that, like OEL manga has always been around at every point in the form of webcomics at the very least. Um, Especially more so now with platforms like Tapas and Webtoon. And there are some extremely popular comics on those platforms that are doing like incredibly well. Um, and like manga is outselling everything else and has been for a while. So I feel like there are multiple factors why OEL mangas seems to be coming back in terms of like actual published books. I'd say one is because manga is outselling everything else, so publishers want to get in on that action. So like Row Piece is with Viz, so that's already a manga publisher, but other publishers are like Random House and stuff like that are publishing more stuff that is basically OAO manga, or at least heavily manga inspired if you look at the artwork and everything. Another thing is like people of our general generation. I don't know everybody's ages, but I mean like our generation, like uh, we're the generation that's been like reading manga and watching anime our entire lives. So like all these people that have been doing that are now growing up and they're trying to work in the comics industry and bringing their love of or their lifelong love of manga and anime into their artwork and into their comics work. So you start to see that like coming in even with like Marvel stuff and things like that. Like there's a clearer manga influence in some things.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's just like a combination of all of that. Just like in the 90s, early 2000s and stuff like that, like comics are still very American, like lots of cross hatching, kind of stiff artwork, big muscular dudes, stuff like that. Because the artists that were doing that, they weren't really the guys or and women who grew up watching anime and reading manga. They're the ones that grew up reading other comic books and were influenced by the style of those comic books and now, yeah, everybody's inspired by anime and manga. You see it in cartoons, like if you watch like any of the popular cartoons on Netflix and stuff like that, it's all animators that are inspired by anime, trying to sneak in references and things like that. Yeah. So that's just kind of like my general thought on this, I guess, the state of OEO manga and how it's coming back uh, in publishing.
Okay, okay. I have to ask. This is another thing. I'm like, this just popped in my head. If you had to pick, and you had to pick between either getting World Peace animated or getting Spera animated, one, I don't even know if you'd want it to be animated. So let me ask that first. Would you?
No, I want Road Piece animated really badly.
Okay. If you had,
And yeah, like part of me is like secretly hoping there's going to be like behind the scenes talks with like animation studios and Viz or something. If that doesn't really happen, then I don't know. I feel like when Volume 2 comes out and I have those two books, I might just like show them to like different animation studios and stuff like that and see if we can work something out. Because yeah, like even my dad read it and his first thought was that this should be a cartoon and stuff like that. I've been like I never really heard that with Spera or Warm Blood, which is another thing I write. But with World Peace, I see that comment pretty regularly, and I feel like it'd be a great fit for animation. So that's my dream right now.
okay, okay. Um, everybody has like the whole like I want this to become an anime, goal. Like that's
Yeah, this is definitely that goal for me right now.
so with Spira, would you not want that to be animated too, or is that something you
Uh,
remain in its current form if you think the story is best told that way?
Uh, I'd love for anything that I've written to be animated. Even Warm Blood, I actually put together a pitch that I could send to animation studios at one point, but then I didn't for some reason. But yeah, I think with Spera, I feel like some time has passed since that ended, and it was a bit more experimental because it had a different artist on every chapter. And I don't know, road piece. If I look at Agroshka's artwork and how fluid it is and stuff like that, it just seems like a much better fit for animation for me. And also, like, I, I'm always trying to improve as much as I can. And maybe the action scenes in Real Piece Volume 1 are maybe a little short, but I feel like Real Piece probably has my best action scenes so far, which is another reason why I feel like it would be a better fit for animation.
Okay, okay.
All right. So I got a few questions about the story, but go ahead.
Actually, before you do that, we gotta go ahead and quickly bring up the Honeycomb Hideout. So, for any of you guys out there who love podcasts, if you like anything like Howard Stern, this is basically Howard Stern for geeks. You want to check out the Honeycomb Hideout because the Honeycomb Hideout is going to be a great listen for anyone who's interested in, not only talking about comics and hearing about the industry, but just loves rawness in a podcast, like an hour-long podcast. So I'm going to put a link down below, of course, to this video. You guys will probably see it down there if you haven't checked it already. So when you're done listening to this interview, go ahead, check out the Honeycomb Hideout, and make sure you follow that. It's on Spotify. Anyway, back to this.
Shout out to Joe and the squad over there, and they doing it up in the Honeycomb Hideout. So back to it. What do you personally think has set World Peace apart from pretty much a lot of the other OEL content out there, especially those that were trying to get into the Viz originals?
I feel like the concept of the Earth shrinking down and like one guy having to try and figure out how to bring it back to normal is something that I don't think has ever been done before. So that's like one thing that really set it apart. And like I'd imagine so. It's definitely not a battle manga, and I could definitely see Viz picking up like OEL manga that's more in the vein of battle manga, so like Dragon Ball Z and JoJo and One Punch Man and stuff like that. Road Piece is definitely an adventure story. So I actually wonder if like they're getting a lot of battle manga pitches, and then maybe just Road Piece being like a space opera adventure story kind of helps set it apart too. Um,
I love that I'm seeing some mecha in there. To be honest with you,
oh yeah.
Oh, that was my. You want to talk about my favorite part? I was like, when you showed off Gotti, like,
Yeah.
okay, let me just Gotti's first body. I already was like, ooh. I was checking it out and everything. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that mech body looks good.
Yeah.
And I expected it to tear some stuff up too. Wasn't expecting the world ball to be as broken as it was, but
Yeah. Gotti will definitely be coming back. You haven't seen the last of her. And yeah, that's. I feel like if you read Spera and then you read Road Piece, you kind of see the same type of storytelling techniques, like in terms of how I write adventure stories. But since I was writing a manga, I definitely thought in terms of okay, what's all the cool stuff that I like in manga. So I knew I definitely had to get some like mechs in there and that kind of thing. Uh, we do like little twists here and there to of course help everything stand out a bit more. But there are tropes that I don't know could be seen as guilty pleasures about manga, but that I personally enjoy. So like Volume 2 is going to have a hot springs scene. Only it'll be a bit different from other hot spring scenes since it's just Lucas Smitten and a giant fish alien. um, but yeah, so there, like I thought in terms of like some manga tropes and just how I could fit them into the story and kind of twist them a little. Not necessarily to subvert them, like, oh, I could do this but make it better, but more like I want to do this thing that I love, but just do it in my own way, in a way that serves the story. Um,
I'm glad you said it serves the story. That's important.
yeah.
and
So
who came up with or how did the Gotti the version 2 body come about? That was well equipped.
Yeah. Um, so I guess we should start with like the robot army to begin with. So the robots in the robot army are actually inspired by like 1950s NASA robots. If you go on Google image search and look at these things, they're pretty cool and creepy looking. So when I saw those, I was like, okay, that's our robot army. So we took inspiration from that. So then when we moved on to Gotti, uh, Gotti is like she's a combination of different parts that Dr. Reynolds, the scientist, used to create Gotti. And so Gotti, like her first form, has elements of the robot army, but she also she's kind of like uneven and stuff like that. So you can kind of tell that she was like put together from different parts. And she was also inspired by Antoni Gaudi, the Italian architect.
Mm.
His architecture style kind of influenced her design a bit, and also influenced some of the architecture, which is one of the reasons why a lot of the architecture has those like smooth, curvy, organic designs. That was inspired by Gaudi. And then, so when we moved on to the Big Mac, it's like, okay, now we take Gaudi's last form and make it into a huge mech. And Yeah, I was definitely thinking of like Metal Gear Solid and stuff like that. So yeah, when we got to that point, I was writing the script. I was like, okay, this is Gotti as a Mac for Metal Gear Solid, and that's kind of what we went with. And Agroshka, she's a big Zone of the Enders fan. I'm not.
Oh, no, just doing with
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, I feel like there's some Zone of the Enders influence in there
I
too.
knew it. Love that game.
How has it been working with Groshka? I mean, obviously we don't have a Groshka here to talk with the Groshka too, but how's that process been?
You should try and invite her to it to do this. That'd be great. But yeah, she's been amazing to work with. She she usually like knows what I'm going for with a design, and if not, then it only takes like a couple of suggestions to get it exactly how we want it. She's extremely hardworking. She's just been working on World Peace nonstop. Uh, yeah, when we were working on World Peace Volume 1, we would have weekly meetings and stuff like that. We had a bit more time to work on that book. Now with Volume 2, we just kind of email each other back and forth, so she has more time to focus on drawing. But yeah, she grew up with a love of science fiction. And I think when she was growing up, she liked shonen manga more than I did. Like I go for more like the adventure stories and stuff, or I like the sports stuff like Slam Dunk. I don't go for the battle stuff as often.
Mhm.
But when she was growing up, I think she liked the battle stuff a bit more. And so that influence kind of comes out in the battle scenes. And yeah, it's great because I'm pretty sure like I never asked her since it would be rude to ask, but I'm pretty sure she's around my age as well. And whenever we talk about manga and anime and video games, we always come back to like the same things that we grew up enjoying. So yeah, I feel like it all comes together really well so that um, Real Peace can have like a coherent vision instead of being like more in one direction than the other. Like when I look at Real Peace and I flip through it, I see something that was definitely created in collaboration.
That's very important because I don't think a lot of creators out there realize how important that comics. Whenever you're doing any kind of comic, it's like a marriage between art and writing.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't have one, if like your story's lacking, or if the art, people aren't on the same page, and you're both painting something totally different from each other, then the story's not going to line up the right way.
Yeah, it also it's been going both ways where I'll make suggestions for her artwork, but she also makes suggestions for the story and the writing as well. So it's definitely a work by both of us.
Nice, nice, nice. So in terms of like conventions, have you guys like done any like shows for any conventions? Has Viz set you guys up to get out there and
Not with not with COVID, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to do conventions before COVID for my other stuff, but yeah, when things improve and I'm remaining optimistic. Speaking for myself, I'll definitely be getting out there as much as possible. And I'm in Canada. I've only gone to the States like 3 times in my life. But with World Peace, I plan on like traveling to different conventions in the States pretty regularly.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
We're right here, along the border. We're in Michigan, so
Okay.
yeah. So you can imagine we can come to Canada, here and there. We're actually in Canada since well before. Well, for me, well before the pandemic. It's been a long time. But.
Yeah. Have you ever been to TCAF, Toronto Comics Arts Festival?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. That's the one that I would go to every year. It's a really nice one. It's like mainly like independent creators, but they also make a point to getting like pretty well-renowned manga creators to go there as a special guest. Like one year they would have Inyo Asano, another year they would have Genji Ito and Taiyo Matsumoto and stuff like that.
Yeah, Junji Ito. I definitely love Junji Ito's work. So many people I feel like sleep on Junji Ito. I got like, was it Tomie sitting like right here?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, Uzumaki is my favorite. I think the movie for Uzumaki is pretty cool too.
oh yeah, I'm like, what else is there? I just got what was it? This one as well. I just read or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, so I was trying to collect all those deluxe Viz editions, but it seems like they come out with like 10 a year. They're like $30 in Canada, so I've had to be a bit pickier with them. But those editions are amazing.
They are. So, kind of going back to the well, actually, before I go into the process a bit, I'm actually kind of curious. Were you, as far as a writer, were you
Yeah.
self-taught or you mentored?
Definitely self-taught in the sense that the only teaching I would have received was in like high school, where I took creative writing classes, and I did get some good advice there, but it's not something that I went to college for. So yeah, beyond high school, I'm definitely self-taught just from reading stuff like that.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought you came quite a bit of ways. From what I read, I was wondering like, oh, is he self-taught? It's kind of a mix of some good industry stuff here.
Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, like when I say self-taught, so like my former partner, she did go to university when we were together, and she went there for creative writing and editing, and she would come home with like all of her textbooks, and then I'd read those from like beginning to end. And I also sat in on like a couple of her classes. So like
So you took the shortcut.
I took the free shortcut. Yeah, but yeah, just self-taught, just a lot of reading. But I did like study structure and stuff like that. Yeah.
And so, okay, the process. Because I'm always so curious about the to know more about the process. So, especially what you're working with official companies like Viz.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have an editor.
Yeah, we have an editor. Her name is Fawn Lau. She used to be one of the designers at Viz. Like she designed One Punch Man. I think she designed I think she started the design for like those new JoJo hardcovers.
Yeah, I remember reading about it.
Yeah, and she designed those really nice editions for Goodnight Poon Poon or Goodbye Poon Poon. I forget the title. But yeah, so she started as a designer there, and then they invited her to be the editor for Viz Originals, and then she invited me to like send in a pitch for it because she knew about my work on Spera, and she would actually come to TCAF every year to buy like the latest copy of that. I feel like one of the reasons why she was interested in it is because Spare books have really nice design as well. So I feel like she probably approached those as a designer and then enjoyed the stories as well. And then, yeah, and then from there she invited me to send in a pitch, and then took like a year for them to look at it and then decide to pick it up.
Okay, and I'm assuming you work with her often, or is it how's the process with your editor?
No. So like we worked with her initially to like build up Rogue Piece from scratch. Like originally, I kind of wanted it to be more of like a steampunk thing, which is one of the reasons why I was looking at Royal Space Force. But she suggested that we just make it like pure sci-fi. Um, and then she just had like some other suggestions and stuff like that in the beginning. And then from there, we just went ahead and made World Peace. Um, so like last year, it's a four book series, and last year I wrote all 4 books. Um, and when it came time to like prepare the book for print and do the proofreading, that's when she kind of came back with suggestions for the dialogue and stuff like that. But yeah, those are really the only times we would hear from her, was when it got picked up and we were creating it, and then she just let us do our own thing for like a year, and then when it came time to publish the book, she appeared again and then had a few more suggestions. I haven't actually asked her this, but part of me wonders if she just wanted us to like create a manga and then she like looks at it. Like like if you think about it, Viz is just grabbing manga from Japan that's already been created. So I wonder if they just don't have that experience with working with creators like every step of the way. Like they're used to like going to Japan, looking at this completed series, being like, okay, let's grab this one. Like they don't talk to the Japanese manga creators and like give them suggestions.
Yeah.
So I feel like that might have been part of it. So yeah, that was how it went. We didn't really hear from her for like a year unless we like really needed her for something.
I see. Okay.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, it was pretty different for me too. I was kind of surprised by it, but I guess I'm a little bit more used to it now, I guess.
Yeah, because I guess you know, somewhat traditionally wise, I guess you would expect to darn near had the editor breathing down your neck every step of the process.
That was what I was expecting.
Mhm.
But yeah, and right now we're working on book 2, and I feel like we probably are. We've been working on it for a while now, since around the beginning of this year, and I feel like the next time we'll hear from her is when the book is done. And then she can like look at the finished book and then make a few last minute suggestions again.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not what I was expecting, but I feel like it's worked out. I don't know. Maybe she could be different with other creators. Maybe she just has more confidence in me or something. I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, maybe it's obviously a good book, and it's they put it out there like, hey,
Yeah,
our number 2 original right here, get it out.
yeah. They really put it out there. Like they had like a full page ad on Anime News Network, which is like the big anime site, and I screenshotted that so I can cherish that forever. Like, print that out and fold it and like wear it as a locket. That was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I'd assume this must be like wow, this it's real.
Surreal.
Yeah, no, I can't believe it either. Like I've actually made 2 separate trips to the bookstore here. Like I think you guys have a store called Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
Over here, our equivalent is called Chapters. And when the book came out, I went to Chapters so I could look at it on the shelf and take a picture. And even then, it still didn't like quite feel real to me. And then like the next week, I went there with my kids so that they could pick up some books. And then I wandered over to like take a look at World Peace again, and it still doesn't like feel totally real. But yeah, it's
You
like
just pick it up and then you're just like, you know, like, hey, I mean, I'm a creator, you know.
yeah. I don't think I could do that, but it's a high that I don't want to come down from. and I feel like it'll take a while for like the shock to wear off, and it'll no doubt like come again even stronger when like the second book comes out, since yeah, I feel like the second book, if people are still kind of unsure after reading the first book, if they read the second book, they'll like be fully aware of what the series is all about.
Nice, nice,
I,
nice.
time flies because
Yeah,
it's like I almost have a whole hour's worth, another whole hour's worth of questions for you at this point, but we gotta get to the money ones. So, but
sure.
first and foremost, for those that are fans of yours or those aspiring to be following your path, uh, one, who were your biggest influences as a writer?
Yeah, my biggest influences like so as a kid, I read Jeff Smith's Bone, which is like a popular series. I read it back when it was a black and white self-published series, and then it was later released by Scholastic as a color series. But Bone was a big influence in the way that the characters interact and the story is told. So like Jeff Smith was an animator, and his approach to Bone was to try and kind of like treat it as a cartoon. So he didn't have like text boxes telling you what was happening. He would only ever show you what was happening. So when I read that, I basically
Show don't
decided
tell.
to like cut out. Do you want me to do show and tell? You want me to grab a copy of Bone?
I was saying that's basically what he did. Show don't tell.
Oh yeah, show don't tell. Okay, I thought you said show and tell. Uh,
I know
uh,
what you
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. But yeah, and also, so well, to like kind of like shorten it a bit, I'd say like the absolute biggest influence on my writing that came from Bone is the character interaction. So like the character banter, the way that characters bounce off of each other. I'd say if I had to like pick some aspect of my writing that I feel like is my biggest strength, it would be the character banter, how the characters interact with each other. Um, And then when I was a teenager, that was when I got more into Neil Gaiman, who wrote Sandman.
Mhm.
And Sandman was pretty experimental and a lot more mature than a lot of the stuff that I was writing. So Sandman's influence on my writing was just the realization of how mature I could make a story and how experimental I could get with the form and structure and stuff like that. Uh, And yeah, for manga, um, I also read like Akira when I was a kid. It came out through Marvel. They had an imprint called Eclipse. Yeah. So Akira was also a huge influence on me. Yeah, I think at the time, and I read it like way younger than I probably should have been. I think I might have been like 9 or 10 when I started reading Akira. Um, but I think Akira was like the first real manga I read, and it was absolutely the most immersive story that I had ever read. Just where like you start reading Akira and you feel like you're inside of that world and that you're there with the characters. Like it didn't have the level of artifice that was in like X-Men and stuff. Um, like it felt real to me. So I'd say that was another influence on my writing, especially because that was what led to me just reading as much manga as I possibly could.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like it's just like
yeah,
that like that big influence for like the whole industry. Like I heard,
yeah,
so, like not to cut you off, I just have to say this really quick. Like I heard recently, like from like an interview or something like that, like way back or whatever. I think it was like on Monbet that Osamu Tezuka was actually a little bit jealous. Um, of Otomo. I don't know if that's true. You know, some
Yeah.
people throwing information out there. I don't know if it's true, so I just want to make sure I say it in case anybody watching, like, hey, that didn't happen.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I believe it. But yeah, I'd say those three. If I had to pick three things by three creators, it would be Bone, Sandman, and Akira by Jeff Smith, Neil Gaiman, and Katsuhiro Otomo. Yeah, for World Peace, like the specific influences, it would just be a lot of the stuff that I was mentioning earlier.
Akira at 9. Wow.
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
thinking. I'm thinking. Then I didn't. I might be late because I think the most complicated thing I read or I watched when I was 9 was Evangelion.
oh wow, that would be pretty intense too. I watched that when I was 14, which I feel was the perfect age since all the characters are 14 as well.
I totally watched it so many times, and still to
Yeah,
this day, I find new things to pull from that series.
yeah,
Same with Akira.
yeah. Like if I wasn't going to say pick manga, but I got to like pick anime as an influence, then Evangelion is probably the biggest influence on me on every level in my entire life. And that's something that I rewatch like every year.
I'm pretty sure you watched that new movie. I haven't finished watching it yet, but yeah, the one.
It's pretty long, like 2.5 hours or something. But yeah, I watched that on the day it dropped, and because it's so long, I had to take like 2 breaks. I had to watch it in chunks. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It felt pretty conclusive, and the ending, which you haven't finished it yet, so I won't spoil anything. But the ending, in its own unique way, brought tears to my eyes.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. So, I mean, this is kind of a traditional question of ours on the spotlight. Any creative rivals? It could be on some Naruto Sasuke type stuff. It could be on some Goku Vegeta. It could be on some Bakuman competitors type stuff. But just someone you on a friendly level, or maybe even on a serious, maybe that you.
Yeah, I have a few, and it's definitely not rivals in a serious sense or anything,
Hmm.
but just a few of the people that I came up with. So there's one creator named Yanni Milono Yanni. He did a series called Old City Blues, which also has a heavy manga influence. Right now, I think he's doing a Batman comic. And like once again, as I was saying earlier, like about how people of our generation getting the manga influence into everything. Like his style has a huge manga influence, and he's doing a Batman comic with that style. But yeah, like every once in a while we try to do something together. Sometimes it doesn't totally work out. I feel like uh, I think he thinks some of my ideas are too weird, but we try to work with each other. But yeah, whenever I see like Yanni come up with something, I'm like, okay, I gotta come up with something new as well. Like I don't want to get left behind. So yeah, it is that kind of level of rivalry. Um, and then there's a French duo named Atelier Cento. It's
Oh,
and they do like once again, it's like hugely manga influenced. They go to Japan like every year, and then they'll make comics or like French comics based on their travels and stuff like that. Um, and I've helped them with the English localizations of some of their books, but there are other creators where like whenever once again whenever they come up with something new, I'm like, okay, I gotta come up with something now too. um, and yeah, And I really cherish these friendships for sure, because these are the people that really push me to like step things up, even if they aren't even like consciously aware that they're doing it. Yeah, these people are like one of the reasons why I just want to keep getting better and better and make bigger and bigger projects.
That
Yeah,
that blood boiling competitive drive, just
Yeah,
friendly competition. This is what
yeah.
this is what Shiny Town was about.
In my head, it's like Bakuman, but in reality, it's not really like that.
Fair enough, fair enough. And now I will leave the favorite question to you.
all right. So it's the biggest question. What is your end game? Meaning, what do you like at the end of your career? When you're old and you
Yeah.
pretty much hit a lot of milestones. Basically, what is your final milestone that you want to hit? How do you see your
Oh
career
man.
at the end of it? Like, what do you want out of
I guess to go with the boring answer first, and maybe I'll come up with a fun one second. But the boring answer is just to actually create a career out of it where I can just focus on writing full time without having to worry about like picking up a day job every once in a while. Like I'd want to just write for the rest of my life, but that's difficult for like a lot of people. Like a lot of creators would never publicly say this, but they have day jobs in order to support themselves. Uh, and then I don't know. Second thing, so like it's almost hard to think of like a fun answer, because like I do want people to know I'm incredibly grateful that Viz is publishing World Peace. Like I really never thought I'd have something as big as this. Like even if only like 100 people read World Peace, just the fact that like Viz, the biggest comics publisher in North America, um, publish it, it's like mind blowing for me. And this is the type of thing that probably would have been my milestone to look back on. So if I had to pick like the a really fun answer, then to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I want a Real Peace cartoon, and I want it bad. I want to be able to like I want a cartoon of this to come out and then be able to look back and be like, okay, I did it. So yeah.
No, I mean, hey, I'm like, I always say keep it raw. So I'm like, you kept your answer honest and true. I get
Yeah.
it. And I can say, hey, you're already out there.
Yeah, I got this thing.
When
Oh
it's
my god.
this up. So, World Peace is definitely out there.
Oh, there it is.
Um,
Yeah.
that being said, gentlemen, I don't know, Nico, is there anything that you want to say before we get ready to close out?
Fellow Shiny Spotlights, or
like too. Just to throw it out there. Like this video, send them likes up to make this video burn brightly. To be able to have this interview stretch far and wide. I know that's a little exaggerated, but I have to say it. Go ahead, Nico.
fellow Shining Lights. Again, I'd like to thank Josh for coming on here. If you have any words of inspiration for anybody, going back to anybody who may be looking at you and thinking like, man, he's paving the way, I want to take his path. What would you advise to these new folks that are aspiring to be an OEL creator?
Yeah, I think two pieces of advice I like to give out. One is definitely to get yourself out there, because I feel like if I wasn't meeting Fawn at conventions, I wouldn't have Fawn Peace right now. She wouldn't know who I am. So like networking and stuff like that, you hear it all the time, but it seriously is important. Follow editors on Twitter. You never know when they're going to be like asking for submissions and stuff like that. And then the other thing, like some people will think, oh, I could write too, and then they start writing and they realize how difficult it is, and then they bail. But when I started writing, I had difficulty even like writing a single paragraph. So when I started writing, I would just do like little vignettes of like take a single idea and then write it as a single paragraph. And then I kept doing that until I got comfortable doing that. And I went from there and I started writing short stories. And then I went from short stories to novellas, and then from novellas to webcomics, and then from webcomics to entire graphic novel series. So like you're going to be intimidated when you start writing, but don't be, because like the time that you put into it is very much what you're going to get out of it. So yeah, just keep at it. And even if you write stuff that you're not happy with, everything's a learning experience. Like all my early stuff, I would never show anybody. But I could tell that I was improving with like everything I did, and I kept getting more and more ambitious. So yeah, basically just stick with it, and yeah.
Okay.
Words, wisdom from Josh himself.
So,
Thank you, everyone, for coming out, watching. Again, if you'd like to see more content from us at the Shiny Spotlight, definitely go ahead and check, like, subscribe, check out.
We got 3 more episodes left in this season. So we have episode 10, 11, and 12 for season 3. So definitely make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. Stick around. You know, of course, we have other videos coming, and we have some other surprises coming up on the channel. But in terms of Shining Spotlight, there are 3 more episodes left in this season. Make sure you go ahead, you go to your store, check out World Peace. Definitely go ahead, check it out. I definitely want to thank you again, Josh, for coming on today, giving us your time, and talking and enlightening us with some knowledge today. And then for everybody who's been here, check out this interview. You guys, have somebody you want to see on the show, especially for next season in particular, just go ahead and let us know, send us a message, and subscribe to this channel for more content. So, with that being said, we will see you guys later.
Yep, we'll have links in the description for all of Josh's social media platforms as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much, guys. This is great.
Thank you. Catch you all later.